welcome back to Pleasure Principles, the podcast where we unravel the mysteries of human connection, intimacy, and the profound pursuit of joy in our lives. I'm your host Vivek, and today's conversation promises to be one of the books. So, we are exploring the intricate and often paradoxical link between addiction and the pursuit of pleasure in relationships. So, how do our deepest desires and cravings intervene with patterns of addiction? And what does it mean to truly find pleasure that nurtures rather than numbs? So, to guide us through this labyrinth, I'm thrilled to welcome Massimo Rigotti. So, welcome to the show, Massimo.
Thank you so much, Avik, for the introduction. This is going to be quite an interesting topic because, as you very correctly stated, there is such a labyrinth that is involved when you take the fine line of addiction and wrap it in human
Yeah.
pleasure. It's a very interesting connection.
Exactly. And dear listeners, before we start, I'll quickly love to introduce Massimo to all of you. So Massimo is a man whose story is an inspiring as it is transformative. Like from battling addiction and bipolar disorder to developing the groundbreaking sober method, he has turned his struggles into a roadmap for recovery and the growth. So he is an acclaimed author, speaker, and addiction recovery advocate, and his insights on pleasure, confidence, and holistic restoration are nothing sort of groundbreaking. So Massimo, welcome to the show again, and let's dive deep into and bring some light to this important and often unspoken connections. So
Sounds exciting.
exactly. So Massimo, like in your experience, how does the human pursuit of pleasure often veer into the addiction, particularly in the context of relationships?
Yeah, so it's very easy to find oneself addicted to someone. And oftentimes we don't look at it necessarily as an addiction, but we've all heard the saying, "Oh, I just can't live without this person. I can't live without her. Oh, I'm just completely broken without this person." And those are subtle signs of a natural addiction to being connected with someone. And the same receptors that are involved in actual chemical addiction are at play here. So if you are naturally someone who has an addictive personality, it's very easy for this to tip into seeking pleasure as well as your chemical addiction. Or sometimes people only pursue pleasure as their addiction. So it's very interesting how this connects because we're talking about chemicals in the brain that when we receive positive reaction, these chemicals are released, serotonin, the dopamine, and we're getting that hit, we're getting that fix, and we want more and more of it. And we will go to great lengths to achieve, in this case,
Mhm.
pleasure to get our fix.
Exactly. And when you were in the depths of your own struggle, so did you find that the pursuit of pleasure was making something deeper, like pain, fear, or maybe even uh, unmet needs?
Yes, I, I'm one that actually combined the whole chemical challenges I had with a pursuit of physical pleasure for a time. So I can speak directly to this understanding of wanting to connect with another person on a sexual level and find that pleasure uh, that anything could become addictive. That becomes really became my greatest challenge when I was really in the deepest throes of my addiction is that anything could become addictive. Food could become addictive. Oh, I had to have this certain particular, it was just the repetition. I had to eat this particular thing once a day or else I didn't feel like I had my fix. And that's that intertwining of wanting to wanting to feel whole. You're really driving towards something that is missing within you. It is what I came to realize in my own work and the work that I do with others now is that we're trying to fulfill a need. These needs are being fulfilled in the brain with chemical reactions. So we're chasing something that is not being given to us naturally. So we basically we go for the easy fix. We're lazy as humans, so we always go for the thing that's easiest. And if the easiest way to get it is pleasure, then we're going to go do things that are pleasurable. If the easiest way is to drink, then we're going to drink. If the easiest way is to do a drug, then it'll be to do the drug. So that's really where we need to focus, that deep understanding that it is not unnatural for someone to be addicted to this type of pleasure.
That's lovely. I mean, it's such a powerful insight, like how the pursuit of something seemingly positive can spiral into something destructive also. So, I mean, it makes me think about how we define healthy pleasure. Yeah.
Uh, Yeah, well, when you say that, defining healthy pleasure, it's
Hmm.
really at the end of the day, it's
Hmm.
finding that natural balance in one's life and knowing that you should just do everything in moderation. And I think that we hear that a lot, and it's just kind of it's in one ear and out the other. But there's a lot of truth in that. It is finding that balance to never put too much of one thing on the scale. You don't want to be you are not going to be healthy if all you eat is junk food. You're not going to be happy if all you engage in is activities that would make you sad. These are these are just like kind of natural things that if you have a balanced life and you engage in things that balance that life, then you're going to find that you don't delve into the easy fixes because that's really what it is.
Exactly. Yeah. So, and uh, how does the search of intimacy or a lack of it play into the addictive behaviors within the relationship? What do you say?
Well, my personal view on it is a little bit nuanced. I've had this huge drive into believing that confidence is the underlying greatest factor in us being happy as individuals. Because, and I see this play out a lot of time in my own clients today, is that they will seek out a relationship to make themselves happy. They will more or less attach to someone who has the strength that they wish they had, and then they will live that life as if it's almost like a barnacle attaching to a whale. The whale's doing fine, and I'll be doing fine if I attach myself to the whale because I'll still be able to eat and I'll be happy and it'll be fine. But you're not really happy. So you're constantly seeking out the approval of the person that you're then attached to. This then dives into the pleasure part of this because you're wanting to feel that deeper connection or any connection with the individual. The sexual pleasure of having that intimate relation with someone is the easiest way for you to feel like you belong and that you're getting that connection with somebody that is often much more difficult to get the chemical release that you would like when you're not having the pleasurable interaction with somebody. So if you become and rise to that confidence level as an individual, then you find that you don't necessarily need these other things, or in this case, to be with someone else. Could I actually live my life without anyone else? And if you can, then you're not going to lean into the pleasure. It will be about a healthy balance then when you're in an intimate relationship because you know that you can survive without it, if that makes sense.
Understood. Understood. Yeah. And do you think that our society's approach to intimacy, especially for men, sets up for those challenges?
Oh, absolutely. There's the greatest challenge, I think, is that men we can't really show our emotions and without being often punished for them. I mean, in most of society, even though we say it's okay for men to show their emotions, they're still punished for actually showing these. I mean, you have to be strong and have that strength. It's just the natural thing of being a male. And so if you're seen as weak if you're leaning into these types of pleasurable activities instead of being capable of just it's okay, I guess it's viewed okay to have these kind of intimacy challenges from the outside world, but we can't necessarily voice our own emotional struggles. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, you can say, definitely you can say. And I mean, it's true that there's often this unspoken pressure on the men to perform um, intimacy rather than actually experience it. So, yeah, understood. Yeah. So, uh, also talking about your sober method is definitely transformative. So, how do its principles, I mean, the sober method principles apply to the cultivating healthy relationships, especially in breaking cycles of toxic pressure shaking?
Yeah, but that's definitely would be broken down in the depth at which you go to observing yourself in the O step of the sober method. So is looking at your behaviors and measuring that, taking that measuring stick against to what is actually healthy, and then mapping different behavior that is
Mm,
healthy and testing your strength to have that behavior in the future. So we're talking about intimate relations today, but intimate relationships, they always begin at some level of natural interaction between two people. And if it's a healthy interaction between two people, that's very easy for us to understand, anyone to understand. People who are in toxic relationships know they're in toxic relationships. So
mm.
they do. They deny that they're in them, but they do know they're in them. If you ask anyone who you see in a relationship that's toxic, of course they'll immediately say, "No, I'm not." But if you press them a little bit, they will admit to it. And when they do, then you can pull them back and ask them, "What would you do differently in this situation? Do you think that what you're doing to this person, the way that you are attacking them, might cause challenges in other areas of your relationship, becoming intimate with them, etc." And that's kind of where the rubber meets the road and looking at how to dig deeper into that interaction. And then once you understand how you might react differently in then you want to test that behavior and see if you can change that with the individual you're with. Now, you're not always going to be able to, and that's the important thing that you have to view in this is that if you're using the sober method to fix your relationship, you both really need to want to change the relationship because it requires work from both sides.
Exactly. Very true. Yeah. And I mean, what to say? Like, if someone in a relationship where addiction, whether theirs or their partner's, is a factor, like, how can they start implementing these principles without overwhelming themselves?
Well, you have to start small. You really do. And the biggest way to do that is to look at you have to understand what your largest
Mm,
challenge is in the relationship first.
mhm.
And not to backtrack about saying start small. You have to understand what your biggest challenge is. And then you have to look at all of the components that make up this challenge. And that's where sober really works well, is because you're peeling off the what is holding this up, what is holding up the greatest challenge you have. So you peel back one challenge, fix that, and then you peel back another, and then the relationship as it frames up is going to begin to heal itself as you work through each one of the challenges that you have in your relationship. It definitely can be done, but it is going to require that dedicated daily work from both sides, and that's a real challenge. And I think that sometimes, and this is where fear strikes a lot of people, and having a lack of confidence, is that sometimes the best thing to do is to step back, take a break, and come back and try to rebuild rather than stay within the confines of it and the toxicity that you have. It's sometimes very difficult to work on things when you're right in the center of it in a relationship. Whereas if you step away for a period of time and cool off and then come back together to try to work on things, it generally has a better outcome.
Exactly. Very true. Yeah. I mean, I love the idea of incremental change. It's like planting seeds.
Yes.
And it- yeah, so it's all small steps, small actions over time, and it can definitely lead to a profound growth. So that's a great one. Yeah. And also like uh, your concept of the flavor of confidence is intriguing. So how does I mean building confidence influence your ability to experience authentic pleasure in relationships?
I'll tell you what, it's one of the most amazing things that I can ever explain is that when I finally found myself confident in my life, it changed
Mm,
the way that I looked at everything. Just imagine being able to walk into any room and know that it didn't matter what you did because you were just yourself. Imagine if you were able to be yourself in a relationship. If you presented
mm,
yourself in any relationship, a friendship to an intimate one, and you were yourself, and your reaction to the other person was your authentic reaction, not a filtered one that you were providing feedback that you thought the other person would like or approve of, well, you're going to get it right back. What the authentic Nate self that you put forward by being confident on who you are, you receive that right back from other people. And I watched as many of my long-term relationships, if long-term friendships, changed during that time period. Now, I didn't make it through my addiction challenges with my wife, with my ex-wife now, but I will tell you this much: we've been divorced for 12 years, and we still are in regular contact. But and that amazes me, because we managed to finally see one another for who we are and gained a mutual respect for one another.
that's lovely. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean it's definitely that confidence is such a game changer. So great. What an incredible conversation today, Massimo. I mean, your insights on the connection between addiction and the pursuit of pleasure in relationships are both eye opening and inspiring. So, your journey from battling inner demons to creating the transformative soul method reminds us that even in our darkest moments, there's a path to the healing and the empowerment. So, thank you everyone for tuning into Pleasure Principles. And if you enjoyed this episode, share it with a friend or family or someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe and leave us a review. Remember, the pursuit of a pleasure should aim. This is your host Avik signing off. So stay curious, stay courageous, and let's keep redefining what pleasure truly means. So, thank you so much.